And we are live. Welcome to another episode of Business Focus Live with me, John, where we talk about business related topics as well as news from here and around the world. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe. Let's get started. And we're back. Thank you again for joining today. So today is Saturday, February the 11th, 2023. So it's a Saturday. I think this will be the new schedule for the live stream moving forward. Anyway, so we'll be discussing some interesting things, none more so than our first topic with regards to how the adoption of AI technology, in particular in our daily lives, is becoming more prevalent in a good way, in a sense. Now, is it for the benefit of people in general? We will have to wait to see. We're talking of the rise of popularity of chatbots, or if you've heard of the term ChatGPT, which is should cause some red flags or alarms of concern from big tech giants such as Google, who's been at the forefront for search engine for so long. Yet they haven't innovated that much, but they have the resources to be able to combat that. But for how long, we have to wait and see. Then you also have companies like Microsoft developing their own chatbot as well. So we'll take a look at that. Next, we'll be talking about how the movie Avatar: Way of the Water has been considered successful in a sense of generating billions of dollars in revenue or ticket sales. But what's interesting is how it's being watched in the big screen. It's not the typical 2D experience. Some prefer, or majority prefer, the 3D experience here. And what's next after 3D? Will the experience of movie go beyond the 3D experience? Who knows? But we'll talk about the movie as mentioned. And then next is we'll be talking about the need for increased wage, for minimum wage at that, to be able to support your own family. But what's interesting is with the inflation, keeps on rising, a lot of business will be hampered. Purchasing costs will be reduced. Many companies will be affected, but not necessarily McDonald's here, which is kind of interesting. So obviously, not all companies are immune to inflation, increase of inflationary rates. We'll talk about that. And next is we'll also talk about the significance, importance of Valve releasing the Steam Deck here in terms of its long-term impact. Obviously, this is a direct competitor for the Nintendo Switch here, which obviously Nintendo has capitalized, has reached a milestone in a sense, reaching I think more than 100 million units sold, which is pretty remarkable. But will it continue still? Which I doubt it because of limitations of the software here. And finally, we'll talk about how the police department is planned of using electric vehicles or Tesla vehicles in this particular to move forward because of its cost saving here. So let's get started. Anyway, so as mentioned for our first topic regarding chatbots are the common, I'm not say common, but it's a big thing now being discussed around the world. And in terms of how one big company, let's see, who owns Chat GPT, it's OpenAI, developed the first ever, or developed the first ever AI technology to be able to interact with users in terms of text based here, and obviously using real time informations to be able to give you answers based on your query. Now, typically, when you're searching for something online, you would normally have to type it on the Google search bar and then wait for the listings to be able to provide you. But in this case, that's not the case here anymore. So the interaction will be different, obviously totally innovative in terms of its features. Question here is how it's going to affect the major players in the case of Google here. So now, according to the article here at businessinsiders.com, that it says that the walls are closing in on Google. So obviously they should be at the forefront of this revolutionary, but they've been, I don't know, you would say complacent to focus on building other stuff rather than innovating what they currently have here. So let's take a look at the article here. Anyway, it mentions here that Google's challenges seems to be piling up in terms of AI competition looming over its search business. And take note that the search business is the main driving force behind the success of Google here. Obviously, they've been the leading force in practically in all markets around the world. And obviously, similar to how Apple has its stronghold on its ecosystem with the search engine coupled with the browser as well as the email ecosystem makes it convenient for the users here. Now, obviously, that could change if consumers find a better option in terms of browsing to the internet and not using Chrome as a platform anymore. It mentions here, combined with the layoffs, low ad revenue, and antitrust issues, Google has a tough year ahead. Now, obviously, for such a big company as Google, they've been hit with a lot of issues in terms of, trying to keep up with its performance year on year, which is a very difficult thing to do. And laying off massive layoffs in their company is not a good sign, and that's more on the internal sides. And externally, obviously, they've been perceived for so long in terms of how they're monopolizing the market, of being how unfair they treat the market, especially how they capitalize on their market power in terms of ad revenue, the marketplace, the sellers and buyers, which we discussed the previous week. So now another issue has risen. Well, it's not just recent, but it's been brewing for some time. The question is, what has Google done to combat this? Since ChatGPT is now here to stay. Now it's not perfect. Obviously, it still has its flaws. And when I first saw this, when earlier today I was watching Linus Tech Tips, the One Show with Linus, discussing, testing the features of a chatbot, asking certain questions and giving you particular information that is real time, and then following up with succeeding questions, then being able to answer it. Now, obviously, it's not yet perfected, it's a work in progress, but it's better than what we're encountering here. Obviously, the interaction, I think, is pretty compelling here. And obviously, Google is stating that they're releasing their own chatbot. And then you also have Microsoft, who has been dead in the water for so long with Internet Explorer, now with Edge. Now they're trying to focus on using Bing as their main platform. So we have to wait and see. The question is, obviously, that's good for the consumers here, since we have plethora of options that keeps on improving in terms of providing service here. Now it mentions here that Google needs to focus on on building its AI business while also keeping costs under control. And obviously, if you're trying to build a new technology, it's not as easy as one would like to be, and you need a lot of resources, which obviously Google has the big advantage on that aspect here. Anyway, so uh, question now is, can they remain competitive, be at the forefront of being the preferred search engine here, or will someone take over in their mantle here? But obviously, with the companies such as OpenAI, I think for them to be successful, they need to create their own platform or partner with a company that can use their technology here. So we'll wait and see if what's going to happen, in the near future. But it looks promising in terms of what the chat GPT is going to do, and how it's going to change the way we interact with our search engine or looking for anything here. But the interesting here is, as of right now, it's still for free. So when people are, what the heck is it? So when people are going to use it, I think if they're going to monetize it, that's sometime in the future, similar how Google does it. But maintaining as a free platform, I think it's going to get a lot of people interested in using this platform here. So we'll see. Anyway, so continuing in terms of entertainment, we've been talking about how successful the Avatar the sequel, The Way of the Water, has been performing in the box office in terms of reaching in the heights of more than 2 billion, surpassing Top Gun Maverick the sequel last year. Now, obviously, to generate those revenues can be deceiving in terms of the cost it entails. I think in terms of the data provided in the numbers.com, it mentions that they spent roughly $500 million to be able to produce the film. But what's not mentioned is the other, ancillary costs in terms of marketing, of promoting a big budgeted, blockbuster film worldwide here. But the focus here is in terms of how it performed in general, in terms of how audiences prefer to watch their content here. And in the case of Way of the Water, according to cnbc.com, many people prefer to watch the film in terms of 3D experience. Now obviously the film is focused on its CGI or computer generated images from start to finish. And what's interesting here is more than 50% of 56% of its domestic sales sold for Disney's Avatar were primarily on 3D screenings. Obviously, having that grand spectacle experience is critical here. But what's interesting here, if I were to show you, here, if you notice here at numbers.com, in terms of performance, it's only a small subset of the entire performance. And you can see here in terms of its total revenue of 2 billion, more than half of its performance is from the international box office. So if you think about the preference of people, sure, in the United States, a lot of people or half of the population preferred watching it in 3D, but it tends to be more costly. But in terms of if it's becoming more of a greater experience for the majority, I think people eventually will adopt it more. But for my case, especially, I'm wearing glasses, so you have to wear 3D glass on top of it, which is kind of cumbersome. So it distracts from the immersion experience, so to speak. I'd rather prefer watching it in 2D. Now, obviously, going to theme parks, experiencing 3D, 4D experiences is a different experience. It's a totally different experience altogether, and you don't have to sit there for hours on end here. But it's a good sign that a lot of people prefer different mediums or different ways of watching films in the big screen here. Now, obviously, this only applies to Avatar. Will it apply to other films, blockbuster films, superhero films? Only time can tell here. Anyway, continuing with the discussion on restaurants. So, in particular, fast food chain, McDonald's, who has been in hot water for skimping on the salaries of their employees, especially the frontliners in the many fast food restaurants that they own. And what's interesting is it's not hurting their bottom line because with inflation skyrocketing, in the United States and practically the rest of the world, uh, there are one of the few industries companies that's immune to this inflationary. Obviously, their target market is the vast majority in terms of offering very inexpensive food offerings, and for that to happen, they have to offer very inexpensive production and obviously labor costs is in this case. So that's why they tend to survive this difficulty even during a pandemic, as we've seen in the past few years. So let's take a closer look. So according to CNBC.com, it mentions that fast food reigns supreme as inflation weighs on pricier restaurants. Now, obviously, if you're in the more upscale, sit-down, fine dining class, obviously you tend to charge more, and obviously, not a lot of people can necessarily afford it, and let alone with the increase of inflation, even limits the number of people who can afford it, and those who can afford it are thinking twice, is it their priority or there are better alternatives, cheaper alternatives that they should be considering here. Now, it mentions here that the chains or fast food chains like Chipotle, Mexican Grill, and Chili's are struggling to attract customers because obviously their concept is more of a sit down casual restaurant. But in the case of McDonald's and Yum Brands, have reported solid US demand as inflationary weary customers strayed down to fast food. And I can attest to that when I visited their great country, along the west coast, and given the convenience that's plenty of buying fast food, drive through the convenience and so forth. The price factor is a big key, especially if prices keeps on skyrocketing. It limits what you can buy and cannot buy. And for those who are in a tight budget, obviously you tend to focus more on inexpensive items, or in this case food items as well. Now, it mentions here that the likes of Red Lobster and Applebee's, which are very popular in the United States, have turned to offering deep discounts or spending big bucks on advertising. Now, I don't know if spending on advertising is the nature of the game, but obviously reduction of cost is tantamount, but reduction of operating cost is even more important. That's why, with the likes of what we were talking about, when Google or any tech giants is reducing its manpower by a significant chunk to be able to slash off your expenses, is the easiest way to go. Otherwise, if you try to increase the price, which obviously can deter customers from buying from your establishment, there is very little that you can do. And spending on advertising, yes, it creates a lot of brand recognition, may not work immediately, but that can be a long term solution. So I don't know if advertising ads will be the short term solution here. And obviously, I think for those bigger restaurants or bigger establishment, I think trimming down those who are underperforming is the best way to go. So you have to shut down some of the branches and consolidate your position in terms where you tend to perform more. So let's say in a particular area or city or town, let's say you have two, three branches in that particular area. Maybe you need to consolidate into just one area so that you don't cannibalize the ability for you to generate maximum revenue here. But that's a tough pill to do. Obviously, reduction of cost, reduction of employees can have ancillary consequences that it's difficult to predict here. Anyway, continuing. So going now into technology or gaming on this aspect. Now, for many of you, if you're a big fan of gaming, you might find yourself consider buying a new console, whether it's a PlayStation 5 or a Xbox Series X or even a Nintendo Switch. But last year, the yeah, I won't say a big player, but a big innovator by providing something different or something better actually, which is Valve's Steam Deck here, which I was looking forward to buying it. And lucky enough, I was able to get one late last year, and then this year, it's now already available here in the country here. But in terms of its impact, will there be a long-lasting impact of that can, hurt the performance, which is their main competitor for the Nintendo Switch here? Anyway, according to the article here at techspot.com, it mentions here why the Steam Deck is the most significant PC gaming moment in years. Now, obviously, what it's offering is pretty staggering in terms of convenience. Not just convenience, but the plethora of games that you are able to play. Not just play PC games, but obviously ports from other console, from PlayStation or even Xbox, and being able to play the retro games. Now, I'm currently playing PC games as of the moment, but I'm looking forward to be able to play retro games, emulation games, which obviously the Steam Deck cannot do or even try to perform. Now, obviously, in terms of gameplay, you cannot play all of the future. You cannot future proof the Steam Deck because of its limitation of its hardware, but it can practically play most of the games that you are playing today. And I tend to focus more on the retro games, older games that I haven't played, since who has time to play. So it would be quite interesting, the revolution it's going to create. Now, will it be able to surpass the performance of the Nintendo Switch? We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, going back to the article here, it mentions here why it is significant for PC gaming, and I think it's a long time coming, because what's ideal is being able to play your PC at home is tremendous, but obviously it's a very bulky endeavor. But offering the Steam Deck is something revolutionary in the sense that you can play it outside. So let's say if you're traveling, going abroad, going on short errands, that there's idle time, you can continue playing your game, especially with the Valve's Steam OS. You know, you can practically save it anywhere, or you can save it through cloud. Could be, you know, a big advantage, which I think what Microsoft is trying to do with their Xbox gaming service here with the cloud service. But obviously the console is the key here. Can you bring it to where you want to go anytime, anywhere? Now, playing at home is one thing, but you know, if you have to travel, go somewhere for long periods of time, that's a different matter here. And being able to offer this, and obviously it's not just, you know, the Steam Deck that's being offered. You also have Aya Neo, who's offering, which is, you know, comparative to what the Steam Deck is offering, but in terms of pricing, it's significantly more expensive. That's why many people tend to gravitate towards Valve Steam Deck here. And you know, the way I see it, if the demand is continues to increase, which I think it will, Valve will continue producing more consoles, since they already have a monopoly of the Steam platform, which obviously Epic Games is trying to compete with exclusive games. But obviously, Steam has a plethora, hundreds, thousands of games that you can play from all the way back to, you know, I don't know if you're familiar with the game of uh Command and Conquer, the RTS type of game. And I think the one I bought, the first few games I bought when I had the Steam Deck, is it's a superhero game, but it's not based on Marvel and DC. I forgot what's the name of the game, but it's like Captain America. I forgot that. Crap, I forgot the name. But anyway, so even if it's 10, 20 years ago, I could still play it today, because obviously the machine is more than capable of playing older games, and it playing current and hopefully future games here. Anyway, let's read on the article what's being mentioned here. Anyway, so while the launch of the Steam Deck was the opposite of pompous, headlines surrounding Valve's PC gaming handheld have jumped out left and right throughout the last 18 months. As we get closer to the deck's first anniversary, the time's perfect to look at the impact it's had on the PC gaming market. Now, it mentions here that at first glance, the tech hasn't caused any intense tremors to be detected by the broader, dare we say, casual gaming community. But if we dig deep around a bit, the Ripple has tiny gaming machine had on underlying gaming topography is more expensive than anyone could foresee. Well, I think having, you know, the portability feature is tremendous in my opinion, because, you know, way back before console were very popular, there's a thing that they call Game and Watch, so you can play, you know, games on the go. But obviously you can only play one game, and it's black and white, and it has, you know, it's a very crude gaming experience, whether it's Donkey Kong or even Tetris and whatnot. But the concept of being able to play on the go has always been there. That's why when Nintendo offered the first Game Boy experience was tremendous, which I was able to play from the black and white. That was the first one. The color version, I wasn't able to do that. But as you notice, other consoles, other for Nintendo, they try to make the Wii, the Wii U, and all the way to the Switch. You know, there is a market for that one, because obviously being able to play portably at the confines of your home or anywhere else is, I think it's very appealing, and I think it's not going to go away, and you know, the impact is going to be tremendous in the long run. Now, the question is, can other companies compete with the likes of Nintendo or even Valve, which is very difficult, because obviously having the console is one thing, but the platform of being able to play the games is the key part. That's why I think Valve has a competitive advantage there, because similar to what Nintendo is doing, you can only play Nintendo games in their platform, but there's already a workaround. If you have a Steam Deck, or you could play emulation games of retro games, then technically it makes the Nintendo Switch useless, in the sense that it's not anymore as important, because you know, you have more opportunities. Obviously, the limitation is the storage space here, which is another discussion altogether here. But the innovation from from the Game and Watch days all the way to where it is today. It's come a long way, and hopefully better things to come for the consumers. And keep up the good work for Valve for being able to produce this type of console. Now, obviously, it didn't come easy for them. They had to fail a lot in terms of offering the Valve controller. Before they tried to foray in the console, but failed miserably. So you know it's a trial and error, so to speak, here. Anyway, for we'll stay tuned. Let's see if what will happen to Nintendo Switch here moving forward here. Anyway, for our last story here, as mentioned. Yes, we have a comment here. Sorry. So let's see it here. As big companies going all in on ChatGPT, and looks like VR or metaverse is not the art as the net killing app. And by doing that, yeah, actually, a lot of companies is trying to focus on the AI. I don't know about metaverse prospect here, because obviously, try to introduce a new platform for the masses is very tricky. You're lucky enough you're able to succeed the first time around when they introduced the Facebook app here. But it's easy for consumers to use. You just have to log in, post your pictures and your stories and whatnot. But the metaverse, what they're trying to incorporate, you have to buy their products, which is expensive in itself. And it's as if when you wear their VR headset, you're having a tremendous experience. As I mentioned it in the past, like with the likes of the movie of Ready Player Go. Can they have that immersion experience here? And if it doesn't come close to that, I mean, it's a waste of time. I mean, it's just like playing games on the VR, but having spending hours on ends on it is going to be difficult. The fact that we were just talking about playing portable games on the Switch console or even the Steam Deck, I can spend hours on end despite being whether it's bulky, limitation of its battery and so forth. But if it's immersive, that it compels you to be able to do the things that you want to do, then tend to forego the other weaknesses of the console. But for the metaverse, it's a big ambition, which I commend the question commend Zuckerberg for trying. But the question is there demand for it? I mean, he's trying to create demand where there's none to begin with, I think, in my opinion. So going back to the chat box, I think it's a revolutionary concept, because I think it's going to make it easier for consumers to make a decision and purchase decision at that. So I think it benefits both the developer of the chatbot or ChatGPT, and for the platform who's going to hold the platform, whether it's Google, Microsoft, or if OpenAI can create their own browser platform. And question makes it easy for consumers to make a purchase if they're searching for something, and that's all that boils down to it: generating revenue. And if the platform can help you link to a particular purchase, direct purchase, with the means of the chat, I think it's done its job, and making it more easier, more, I would say transparent, but more fluid in a sense, because obviously the AI bot is still learning, just like what Tesla is doing with its full self-driving feature, which is even dangerous, as I mentioned before, because obviously lives are at stake here. But with the app here, you're at the confines of your home. There's no lives at stake there. So we'll see. I think in the next few years, I think that's going to supplant what our current search engine looks like right now. Anyway, going back to our last story, as mentioned, wherein police is now considering using EV vehicles, in particular Tesla vehicles, to supplant or change or replace their combustible engine. Now, whether that's reasonable, practical, well, only time can tell. Now, they're arguing that it's going to save them thousands and tens of thousands of dollars. So, in this particular article, let's see. According to electric.co, it mentions the police chief explains how Tesla Model Y patrol car will save them $80,000. Now, I noticed that the photo is taken in very cold climate, and Obviously, in terms of battery, the apprehension in my aspect is that the battery has limitation, whether it's dealing with extreme temperature, whether it's too cold or too hot, and it reduces the battery capacity here. Now, it was mentioned that the range of a Tesla Y is pretty significant. Not say significant, but it's long enough that you don't have to keep on charging it every day. Now, obviously, for practical purposes, that might work. Now, in terms of cost wise, is it really going to save them in the long run compared to a combustible engine? Since one of the key things that was not mentioned, as with any adoption of new technology, is the cost of repair here. And obviously, you need specialized technicians who knows how to repair electric vehicles here. Obviously, there's some similarities with combustible engines, but for the majority, especially the electrical part of the batteries, how it's being adopted, can you tinker with it? Which is, obviously, Tesla doesn't want you doing anything about it there. Anyway, it mentions here, according to the police chief at Somerset in Wisconsin, explaining why the police department decided to go through with replacing their vehicles with an electric vehicle. Now, there are an impressive number of police departments around the world realizing that electric vehicles are a perfect solution to both reduce operating costs and environmental impact. I don't know about environmental impact. Let's argue that operating costs, sure, it would be cheaper to use them long term if it does as it's intended, but environmental, it's kind of iffy because of where the batteries are originated. Now, it's not very abundant where the different materials that the batteries are being made are aplenty here. And it's not as if they're all made in the United States. They are all over the world, and some countries are, exploitation are being, are happening to be able to excavate those finite rare materials here. Anyway, they go on to mention here that they mentioned that the detail of buying the extra made it clear that choosing the Model Y is a financial reason. Yeah, but I don't know. I'm still on the apprehensive side in terms of choosing tech that's totally focused on technology, because if it were to break down for some reason, question is, can you still use your vehicle? That's the problem here. And obviously, for a regular combustible engine, you can still push start the vehicle, give it a kickstart to be able to start it. But if there's too many softwares involved, gadgets, whatnot, it has many limitations here. Anyway, it mentions here and it highlights here, so I want to share it to everyone. They mention here that here are some of the benefits of no oil changes, which is true. Regenerative braking, so it tends to add more electricity because of braking rather than loses energy. And it's mentioned that it can run for 500,000 miles, rated for that far. So meaning it could go that far. And then the drivetrains is designed for 1,000,000 miles, which is plenty enough. Then there's a 5-year drivetrain and battery warranty, or a little over 100,000 miles. And then most are American-made vehicles, and it has the highest crash test rating. I don't know about that. It has superior performance. I tend to agree with that, and long vehicle life. Now, obviously, with the current generation, they keep on improving the performance of the vehicle, because obviously the adoption is difficult if there's limited availability, and not just the vehicles per se, but the charging station is important, because it's just like with any battery issues. You don't want to get caught red-handed if you ran out of battery, or a battery is running out, that you have to go back to the police station to get it charged up. And obviously, you need multiple supercharger stations around the United States and around the world that's readily available, similar to how gas stations are aplenty before people, there's a wider adoption, which is what one of my many apprehensions here. Now they're stating that it's going to save them cost of 80,000 over 10 years. That's not take to account that it's being subsidized by the government. Without the subsidy of the government, because government is pushing them that people should adopt, the EVs in general, can drive up the cost significantly, not just in the 50 to 60,000 range, in the upward of more than $100,000 here, which is not considered affordable anymore for the majority here. But only time can tell if if more people, more government agencies starts to adopt electric vehicles, because even here in our country, the public transport, some are using electric powered vehicles. But the question here is, can it be adopted for the majority? It's one thing that the for public consumption, buses, or even in this case police cars, but for general consumption for private citizens, I don't know if that's going to be adopted anytime soon. But I could be wrong. So only time can tell. So we'll see. We have another comment. So model-wise innovative integrated heat pump really helps a lot in winter colds. Yeah, that's why you have to incorporate a lot of things for, you have to solve a lot of problems first before, a lot more people can start, adopting the technology. And obviously, uh, again, if you're going to provide heat pump, adds more technicalities, complexities in the vehicle, which adds to the chances, high likelihood of a vehicle breaking down, which is obviously, as in the case when point in Wisconsin, it's very cold climate there, and obviously, even combustible has limitation of how long it can stand the cold weather. But again, for battery, once you're when it rains, there's nothing more you could do. It's not as if you could just simply refill it in a few seconds, few minutes, then it would jumpstart it right away. So that's my only apprehension here. But we'll see, because a lot of people are enamored with what Elon is offering here. That's why a lot of other car companies are following suit, whether it's Toyota, Mitsubishi. You have American car makers, even the Ford, GM, and European car makers, Volkswagen and BMW and Mercedes are trying to follow the trend. But the question is it going to in the right direction here, with with what's happening with the economy, the inflation? A lot of factors are hindering the progression that is necessary for the adoption to take fold here. Anyway, that's about it for this week. So thank you for joining me today. So come back again on Saturday for more Business Focus Live. Leave your comments down below if you found any of the topics interesting, or if you have any comments, so we can start a discussion here. As always, I'll see you in the next one. Take care.